Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Aquarius Rising Africa, and it's Marvelous Monday. I hope you all had a fantastic weekend and are filled with the beans of life because here it is spring and life just got a whole lot better. The weather is sweet, the sun is out, my doves are eating. I mean, life is just peachy. Hello, Bryce. How are you?
I'm so good. It's still hot as hell here in Georgia, so we haven't quite moved into fall yet. But I am so good. My favorite day, my favorite show, Monday shows where we get to really shit talk, basically.
We get to scandal and be seriously petty. So I'm enjoying that. Hello, everybody in the chat. So good to see you all. Joanne. Oh, Joanne, it's still a little bit late for you and a little bit early for you. So it's not too bad. You're in Australia. Hello, everybody. Jojo, Colleen, Joanne, Gail. Let me see who's all here. Dots. Guys, so good to see you. Welcome to Monday. And of course, we are on part 2 of the Owl of Minerva, which I know last week we kind of got a little, hello, Janice. We kind of got a little bit waylaid along the way.
That's okay. That's what makes
yeah,
it.
We were talking about all sorts of other things. So I see Joanne is a moderator. I love it. I've added a couple of mods. So
Good.
Joanne is on today.
Although
Yes, Bryce, useless moderator, by the way. You're a useless moderator, you.
You know what? I'm sure, Shanti, if I were moderating this and being on the show, they would definitely start some witchcraft rumors, wouldn't they?
No, I know. When you are on, you're fantastic.
I'm so glad that Joanna. Although sometimes the trolls can be quite amusing when they do pop up. So
yeah, no, I know we do get entertained sometimes. But you know, we should also be entertained. We are not just here for entertainment purposes,
no.
although we are.
I was telling you, Shanti, before we get into it, because I actually, if you don't mind, I want to put a call out to Jaguar Wright. We were talking about this off camera.
Yes.
If Jaguar Wright happens to see this, can you get in contact with us? My email is esotericatlanta, my channel name for you, at gmail.com. Super simple, Shanti.
Yes, or me, Aquarius Rising Africa. What an amazing, I mean, I've not actually watched any of the videos. You've just absolutely told me about it now. Jaguar Wright. So she's apparently pulling the plug on all Hollywood shenanigans like the Beyoncés, and she worked with them. So she's singing like a canary right now. And I think that is such an important thing because it starts with taking down their idols, right?
Yeah,
and
she talks about that actually. She talks about
Yes.
that, the idolization and how God is the only thing you should be idolizing. And she gets, y'all, if you have not seen her videos, and I might be late to the party because she's been singing apparently like a canary for a very long time, like Cat Williams, about the hip hop and the R&B side of Hollywood, which we just now. So I am so happy that she's been vindicated and validated because of the big arrest of P. Diddy. You know, and so and she's talking about all Jay-Z, Beyonce, Jennifer Lopez, all of these people, Usher. She is calling them all out for the scumbags that they are. And so if you guys, she's got tons of videos up, and I think that because she talks about spell casting. She calls out the Illuminati just like Cat Williams. And I think if she could especially talk to Shanti, there could be an even deeper conversation when it comes to the religious beliefs of this group. Because I think that's what people are, I think she's trying to push that a little bit, like hint around that. But I've always believed that that's kind of what people are missing, is that this isn't just about people with like sicko tendencies. This is a religion for them. This is their religion. And if it's someone's religion, look how hard the Christians will fight to be enslaved by the cabal. They will too. And she talks about that. She talks about in one episode how how involved the churches are with this, and how the churches are 100% behind the propaganda of Hollywood and what's going on, which I was like, thank you for saying that as well, you know. And so yeah, so if Jaguar, if anybody knows how to get in touch with Jaguar, Shanti and I would love to talk. We're going to try ourselves independently, but I thought might as well just put it out there. So, you know.
Hello,
yeah,
Dennis.
There is one on the dollar bill. And if you turn it upside down, it looks like a demon. So.
Yeah, seen that. Wow.
Yeah. Now, I want to reiterate. So I guess pivoting from Jaguar, although it all comes down to the same thing, right? Like we're all getting to the same. It's the same nucleus. It's the same group of people in every story. But just to back up a little bit, if you guys are like, if you're just signing in, you're new to this, what we're doing, the series we're doing, we're actually been looking at the Borgias, and as I've said before, the Borgia 4. So that's Cesare, Juan, Lucrezia, and Joffrey are like my favorite historical family to study because they're so bad. They're just so bad. And their father was Pope Alexander VI. We've already covered all of them. But now we're looking at some of their descendants. And I tell you, this one descendant, St. Francis Borgia, that we're getting to, we have to look at all these different things because there's lots of spinning plates around him. He is way more diabolical than his ancestors. He is the great-grandson of Alexander VI. And so if you missed the previous episodes, we've been through kind of the Jesuits because he was the third Black Pope. He was part of the creation of the Jesuits, we'll say. And what that was all about, we went through their oath, which was horrifying. And now we're looking at the Owl of Minerva, which, of course, is the mascot, we'll say, for this group of the Illuminati and the Jesuits, which are one and the same, really. And then we're going to get, after we get through that, we're going to get into necromancy, which is a form of witchcraft involving dead people, which St. Francis, the Catholic Church is all about this, by the way, but St. Francis especially. And we're going to
they're all about necromancy. I mean, if you just look at Jesse's job would have been, was all the time just to necromance between her, or her proctor's job was that, but that would have been Jesse's job to necromance. I don't even know if there is a word called necromance, but if there isn't, I'll just make it up today. So they just necromance between her and Lucy over there on the dark side.
Oh, we're going to talk all about it. I mean, I've got that's why it's taking us so long to get through St. Francis Borgia, because there's so much of a backstory to this guy. And so we have to kind of understand where the occult is, at the dark occult, I'll say, because there is, occult just means hidden knowledge. Like there's not, occult itself is not bad. So, so we're talking about the Owl of Minerva, which, yes, it is on the dollar bill. It is Washington, D.C. Now, I wrote in my notes because somebody brought up Washington, D.C. If you look at an overhead view of Washington, D.C., it's in the owl. Now, what's really fascinating, you guys, and this literally just popped up with the Cassiopeians. So I've been to D.C. D.C. is, if you want to talk about Tartarian, those buildings in D.C. are magical. They're Tartarian. They are so... It's so powerful. And when I left DC, I was like, I actually loved it. I thought it was a great city. And this is what the Cassiopeians had to say about DC. So again, remember, the owl is just an owl. And tools, the darkness cannot create anything. It can only take from the light and invert it or try to mimic it. So everything we see the Illuminati doing, its original template is of the light. So we always have to remember that, right? Now, Washington, D.C. is on the 77th parallel ley line. So it's that line is very powerful. According to the Cassiopeians, Washington, D.C., where it is the portal, the hub for fourth density, for both negative and positive. That's the big battleground. That for some reason, where this is on the 77th parallel ley line is like a portal for both the positive and the negative. So that is why DC is so fought over. And that is why DC is its own District of Columbia. It's not a part of Virginia. It's not a part of Maryland. It's its own thing. Now, in American history, they tell us as kids that when the newly formed United States, after we won the American Revolution, The original capital, I believe, was in Philadelphia, and they moved it south to be closer to the southern states as well for representation. Well, Washington, D.C. is not that far south of Philadelphia. It's really not. You've got D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York City, Boston. They're all on their own parallel line, which then parallels to Stonehenge. So very fascinating. So we know right away that obviously the history we've been told is BS, because people who don't have that kind of education are not just going to randomly accidentally put a town on a perfect grid that connects to the 77th parallel, which is also the hub of fourth density. So my speculation, because when I was in DC, I loved it. And when I heard that from the Cassiopeans, I thought, well, interesting. Maybe when you're there now, whatever you feel more aligned with, the positive polarity or the negative, is what you're going to feel when you're there, because it's both. Both are there. Okay. So when we look at the Owl of Minerva as being kind of, if you again take an overhead view of DC and you see it, is it all negative, or is there also some positive aspects? Well, of course there's positive aspects, because the owl is a creature created by God as well. You know, the owl is wise. The owl can turn its head in a 360-degree motion. The owl, it can see in the dark. You know, so are we ourselves not becoming that fated Owl of Minerva as we learn more about the truth of our world? Are we not also being able to see in the dark? It's not just them anymore. So in that sense, are we claiming that back, right? So again, just a PSA, don't go killing no owls, because, or goats, or any other.
Yeah.
I love goats. Goats are the funniest animals. They are so freaking funny. Like, they're hysterical. They're goofy. And they when they play dead, when they fall, it's hysterical. So
they can climb up anything. I mean, have you seen them climb up a roof? I mean, they're like, I don't know how they get there, but they do.
If you go up to North Georgia near Clayton, there's a shop, a very famous shop called Goats on a Roof. And the shop is just like a convenience store. It sells like fudge, milk, stuff, but they have goats, and the goats are on the roof, and you can buy feed and go feed the goats, and they kind of climb all over the roof, and they have a little pen. We've never taken our dog there, because I'm sure our dog would just start barking ferociously at these goats. You know, so we can't, it's like the snake as well. The snake is also something, the serpent, that's been used and abused by this dark group, and we have to remember that we're the side of healing. We got to heal these things, right? And the owls are probably looking around like, what? I didn't do anything. They're just using my likeness, you know. So
it's not my fault. I'm wise.
No, it's not maybe. You don't be jealous, like. So we have to remember that. Now I'm going to recap a little bit, because the Owl of Minerva does come from Greek and Roman mythology. So once again, the little owl is the familiar of Athena and of Minerva. And so in the Roman mythology, it's Minerva, and that's where so they can be interchanged, Athena and Minerva. Now, again, we talked about familiars, that in the occultic arts, in both the positive side and the negative side, because there are positive occultists as well. A familiar is a small animal that kind of, it's defined as one that accompanies a witch, and it's believed that a familiar only not only brings protection, but also helps lend to the witch, the wise woman, because that's what witch means, right? Witch means wise woman, having magical powers. All right. And again, so in my personal opinion, I want to take back the word witch, because that's all it means, is wise woman. That's all it means, is wise woman. That's it. Just like heretic. All heretic means is someone who goes against the narrative, right? If we take back the meanings of these words, then they don't become powerful. They lose their power, right? So, all right. So let me look here. Okay. All right. So now, again, the Roman goddess Minerva is the goddess of wisdom, justice, law, victory, and she sponsors the arts and strategy. The name Minerva means intelligent understanding. So intelligent understanding. All right, so let's talk about, now we're going to go back to Athena, because they're interchangeable. So we talked a little bit, we've talked about Zeus a lot, actually, not a little bit. We've talked about Zeusy Poo a lot. And Zeus, to me, is quite a problem. And if Zeus didn't exist in Greek mythology, then they literally would not have a lot of their mythology, because he's out here. Zeus literally is schmaping everyone, because we can't say the real world. The word that P. Diddy is guilty of starts with an R, schmaping. So Zeus is literally schmaping everyone. Like, this guy, Zeus is the poster child for a freaking narcissistic psychopath. So let's talk a little bit about Zeus and his relationship to Athena, because he is Athena's father. Now, again, Zeus is where we get the name Jesus from. Hail Zeus. The real guy was Yahshua. So we see how they're trying to pull in this negative, in my opinion. I think we talked about this on Wednesday, Shanti, about I believe that the Greek deities are Nephilim. That's what and I think that because they're giants, if you look back at Greek art, they show the Dionysus, they show all Zeus, they show all these deities as being very tall compared to humans. And I think for a long time, we've assumed that that was our ancestors being metaphorical in their artwork. No, I think they were being literal. Like, I think they were literally telling us that they were giants. And we know that the Aluma Shmati, as well as the church, the Elohim, they worship the Nephilim. All right. So I think that that's why they're getting us to worship Zeus and not Yahshua. Right. So that's just my opinion. But let's talk a little bit about Zeus and his relationship to Athena. So in Greek mythology, Zeus was the supreme god of Olympus and the universe. He had a first wife whose name was Metis. Now, Metis was a wise goddess. She was the daughter of the ocean, and she was also a shapeshifter. So Metis was a shapeshifter, water, emotions, and she had helped Zeus with some really tricky stuff in his life. Like, she had guided him. And then Zeus decided that he wanted Metis to be his wife. Metis did not want Zeus to be her husband. She did not like Zeus that way. And for Metis, for Zeus, a bit like P. Diddy, no didn't mean no to him. He took what he wanted. So he forced her. So basically, Metis would shapeshift to change, try to get away from Zeus, because he was pursuant on her. He also, not only was he sexually attracted to her, but he wanted her wisdom. He wanted how smart she was.
Right.
So he forced her. He ambushed her and forced her to be his consort. At that point, she's basically chained to Zeus. He's caught her and he's forcing her. Which is, no means no. No means no. If a woman doesn't want to marry you guys, you don't force her to marry you. That's no means no. So the goddess Gaia comes to prophesize to Zeus and Metis, and she tells Zeus that he would have 2 children with Metis. 1, a girl that would equal him in strength, and 2, a boy that would be stronger and take away his power. So now Zeus is this is now Metis' fault. So he forced Metis to marry him. He schmaped her. And now he's being told that through Metis, he's going to have a daughter that equals his strength and a son that's going to overtake him one day. Now, of course, this is Metis' fault. So what does he do? I kid you not, my friends. He eats her. He eats Metis.
Was that literally though? Or is it part of the myth that, when they consume them often, it's just consuming their energy sometimes.
No, he's in his body. Like, they show her in his body. Well, at that time, because remember, these are Nephilim, so they're half human, half extraterrestrial. So things work a little differently for them. At the time, she is already pregnant with Athena, the daughter. Okay. Now, when he eats Metis, he not only consumes the pregnancy, but also consumes all of Metis's powers. Right? So all of a sudden, he starts having this bad headache. And so he asked for another deity to step in and open his head. And when he steps out, or when he opens his head, Athena steps out fully grown in her armor. All right. Now, the second child would obviously never come, because Metis spent the rest of her life in his body. Yeah. So, all right. Now that's kind of gives us kind of the story of, yes, hunting the shadows. That's what I'm getting. Yeah, he was big on cannibalism, wasn't he? There's many stories of Zeus and cannibalism. And if you guys go back and look, I think go to the search bar on Shanti's channel on Aquarius Rising Africa, and you type in Dionysus, the Dionysian cult. We broke down the Dionysian cult, which Dionysus was also a son of Zeus. And the Dionysian cult is basically what rules the world today. Jerry, I believe you. I don't think they all were, Jerry. Like I very much am of the opinion that we can't do what the Yahtzees did and practice genocide. We have to like judge each individual for their own actions. There absolutely were cannibals within the Nephilim, but I don't think all the Nephilim were cannibals. Just like I don't think all the Nephilim were bad. You know, it's just like not all white people are bad, or not all black people are bad, or not all, you know, it's every individual has free will choice. But absolutely, Zeus was a big old cannibal. He was a big old graper, schmaper. He was very low empathy. He schmaped Dionysius' mom as well. So he must have been really ugly, because if you got to schmape all these women just to get a little hanky panky on the side, you must not be that attractive. I mean,
I think they just kind of they didn't really care. You know, they were the gods and they took what they wanted. Yeah. They weren't even considering that they could be ugly or unattractive, or that women might reject them. I mean,
he forced them. I mean, it is. Zeus is not. And that's why I really want to, really think people need to educate themselves on the name Jesus. Because as Jaguar Wright has said, words matter. Words matter. It matters.
Yeah, and for sure.
Yes. And so that's why I'm very careful yeah, Jerry, I know where you're coming with that, but we can't, that's literally, if you say all the Nephilim were cannibals, that's literally like saying all white people are bad. We have to be very careful about that, like very careful about not being as nasty as the people that are bigots. You know, we have to be law and order. We have to see evidence. We have to actually judge people by the content of their character, or judge Nephilim by the content of their character, and not by their, you know, what they were, you know. So yeah, Jojo, I had to really train myself not to use the name anymore when I got deep in my research, and it like hit me, and I was like, oh my God, they've been tricking us this whole time. And again, Jaguar Wright talks about the church, guys, in some of her videos. She talks about the church's involvement in all this nastiness. So yeah, Joanne, we can't stereotype everyone. I don't want to be stereotyped with other white people who have done crappy things. I mean, how many white people are in the Illuma Shmati? You know, like Shanti and I are, how many O negatives, Shanti, are in the Illuma Shmati, and we're O negative. We don't take responsibility for what they did with their lives. You know, we have free will choice, you know, and so that's what matters, is our free will choice. So anyway, so I guess we can, from there, I want to move on to necromancy, because that's what I'm really excited about talking about, because it's so disgusting. It's so freaking disgusting, you guys, necromancy. First of all, I want to ask anybody in the comment section, do you guys know what necromancy is, or do we need to go? Has Jesse talked about necromancy? And
yeah.
Okay. So I want to specify, there is a difference between like necromancy and calling on your ancestors for help. I'm going to get into the difference, okay? Because
yeah,
you know, calling on like your spirit guides, or like talking to, like going and placing flowers on your grandparents' grave, that kind of stuff, that is not necromancy. I just want to make that very clear again. So don't feel like, you know, I think when we take a very extreme approach to things, then we end up going into darkness ourselves. So I want to really make a difference, like distinguish a difference between the two. But before we get into necromancy, something really important that we got to talk about that has to do with necromancy is sainting, the sainting system of the Catholic Church. Because the Catholic Church is like, Shanti, you and I grew up Protestant. We didn't have saints, did we? In the Protestant church?
No.
No saints. We didn't have saints. We didn't pray to the Virgin. Now, again, I'm not saying Protestants are just as messed up as the Catholics nowadays, but I'm just saying, for me, when I was really getting into the witchcraft of Francis Borgia, which I've labeled the most dangerous Borgia, I had to go back from the beginning of different practices in Catholicism to help me understand what was happening. And so I literally looked up what does one have to do to become a saint? And so this is a direct quote from the Google machine. All right, you guys. So the process of becoming a saint in the Roman Catholic Church is a formal process that involves 3 steps. Venerable, which is that the Pope recognizes that the deceased person lived a life of heroic virtue or gave their lives, which is martyrdom. Or 2, blessed, that the person is beatified and granted limited literal veneration. And 3, saint, the person is canonized and granted the title of saint. Now let's talk about this, because I was like, okay, so first of all, we know that giving your life for a cause is actually negative polarity. Martyrdom is of the darkness. Do not martyr yourself. That is not good. That is, the law of one is very clear about this. You have to take care of yourself. That's why when you get on an airplane, they tell you to put a mask on yourself first, an oxygen mask on yourself first, before you help others. You cannot be of service to other people if you are dying for a cause. Okay, so when we look at the venerable, we look at, okay, so that's negative. Now, a life of heroic virtue. Elitism, that's this pecking order of who's good and who's bad, is darkness. That's a pecking order. That's elitism. That's not what the light does. Now, I also want to recognize, before we get to beatified, that the Pope is the person that has the authority to do this, to saint somebody. Now, if you remember from our episode on the Jesuits, we have the 2 keys of the Pope's flag that stand for the temporal power of the world, meaning that he has control of all the governments in our world, and 2, the spiritual power, that there is no salvation without the damn Pope. The idea, yeah, that's a really, hunting in the shadows, that's a really good point. But the idea that there are human beings out there that actually believe that another living, breathing human being who sits on the toilet to shit just like everybody else has the right.
And there's a whole lot of more disgusting things.
Exactly. But the fact that you, even for the people who don't know about the Illuma Shivani, the people that think everything's all good in the world and it's all, up on the up and up, you literally believe, like, how wackadoo. I heard somebody in one podcast, this guy who also gets threatened by Christians a lot, I just laughed. He goes, you dummies. Like, how wackadoo do you have to be to actually think that another human being that came out of the birth canal just like you did has authority over your soul?
Exactly.
It's bananas. But that is what the Catholic Church believes. And that is what the Jesuits are trying to reinforce with the New World Order, right? Because the Jesuits are the army for the New World Order. They want the Pope, which I think the Pope answers, we can get to that later, but they want the Pope to be the one world government. One world government, right? And that this Pope has power over all of your governments, your temporal power, and has absolute authority over your soul. Well, no one can have authority over your soul unless you sell your soul to that person, right? So now let's talk about number 2, blessed. The person is beatified. I don't know if I'm saying that right, because we don't, again, have this in the Protestant churches, so this was new to me. So I Googled, Mr. Google machine, what does beatified mean? So according to the Google machine, beatified is, the definition is a recognition, according to the Catholic Church, of a deceased person's entrance into heaven and their capacity to intercede on behalf of individuals who pray in their name. Right? So the Pope is the one. Do I feel like the Pope has a special toilet? LOL. The Pope actually is determining when the person entered heaven. So again, he has the, yes, hunting the shadows, one world government and one world religion, which is what makes me want to smack my head in the wall with these damn Christians sometimes. Do you not see that they are trying to make your religion the one world religion? You shout out that you want people to be free. No, you don't. If you want everybody to be in the command of your religion, you don't want people to be free. Right? God is everywhere. God is love. God is not a religion. God has nothing to do with religion. That is the worship of legion. It comes from the legions of demons. God is not that. And so hunting the shadows, that's exactly correct. If we have one world government run by the Jesuits and their Pope, we also have one world religion, right? So this makes me so mad and infuriating that there's this group, the narcissism to think that they can control the salvation of somebody's own soul, but then it makes me even madder when there are people that actually believe it. I just want to shake them and be like,
but it's the brainwashing. Let's think about it like this. I mean, they've come in with this agenda. If we're listening to Jesse, Caleb, lots of other people, Jessica with all her cryptid stone, Dennis hunting the shadows, the stuff that you guys actually deal with, it's very obvious that we don't just live here. And it's very obvious that there's been so much brainwashing over the centuries.
Yeah.
So they've gotten us to so slowly but surely they've disconnected us from ourselves, really.
From common sense.
So they've completely, exactly. It's exactly from common sense, because the way that the Catholic Church has been molding its congregation. Do they have a congregation? Is that what you call?
I don't know. That's what we call the Protestant faith. So a parish, I don't know.
The way they've been molding their people in all churches. I mean, even you see these charismatic Christian churches where you hop and dance and sing and carry on. I mean, you speak to people that go there the night before. They'll have all their Satanists go there on a Saturday night, conjuring up the demons that are ready and waiting for service on Sunday.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Growing up, the church that I grew up in, I was the most afraid of that building. I grew up in haunted buildings. I mean, and I'm in the South. Everywhere's haunted. Everyone's got ghosts in their house. No one cares. But I was always terrified at our church. I never wanted to go to the bathroom. I would always hold my, it was kind of a catch-22, because I remember as a little kid, I would hold my pee for big church, as we called it, because I'd get so bored. I'd want an excuse to leave. But I'd always be afraid too, because there was something so incredibly creepy about the church. And now that I know what I know, it's because Yahshua wasn't there. Jesus was, Zeus was, but Yahshua wasn't. And as a little kid, that's what I would be picking up on. And now it makes so much freaking, I thought parish had joyful, I think, it's a parish is what the Catholic. Anyway, but Protestant churches are just as corrupt, guys. Even though I'm coming down hard on the Catholics right now, it's just as corrupt. So the Pope is, we're going to get joyful. We're going to get to the statues in a minute, because that's part of necromancy, which, okay, so let's just kind of recap. So a person is living, and then everybody, they die. And then the process of that person becoming sainted should start at least 5 years after the person's death. So for a lot of these cases, let's just play the LOL devil's advocate. I don't know how many saints there are in the Catholic Church. I didn't look that up, because to me, even before all this started, I always thought sainthood was effing weird. I thought it was weird. I just thought it was weird. Let's say that some of these people sainted, they haven't given their consent to be sainted. And this is important, because we're looking at with the blessed, with the beatified, again, the definition is a recognition, according to the Catholic Church, of a deceased person's entrance into heaven, and therefore have the capacity to intercede on behalf of individuals who pray in their name. This is spellcasting. This is effing spellcasting. And this is why, my friends, I will never, when people do group prayers, I don't care where I am. If I'm at a funeral or at a dining room table, I will never bow my head when somebody else is praying, because it's a damn spell and I don't know what that person is going to say. I want to maintain my own autonomy. And so when people have like a group prayer, I will sit quietly while they pray, but I will not bow my head and pray because it's a spell. Prayer is spell casting. And I don't want to be, I don't know what that person's going to say in their prayer. I don't care if it's my mama or if it's my grandmama or if it's an aunt or if it's a pastor. I don't know what they're going to say. And I don't want to be accountable for what they say. So I will not participate. It doesn't mean that I don't believe in God. It doesn't mean that I don't pray myself, but I keep it private because that is powerful. There's power there. So, and we're seeing it right here in this necromancy. Okay. So you've got this person that's dead. They've been dead. And then all of a sudden the Pope, because if, you know, I can't be a saint. Shanti can't be a saint because we're not Catholics, right? So we can't, darn shucks. We're the heretics, Shanti. We're the heretics who can't be sainted. So,
Gosh darn it.
Yeah, gosh darn it. You can't use me at the end of the day. So we have these people who have submitted to the Catholic Church, who have knowingly or unknowingly given their consent to the Pope being the Mac Daddy, being the supreme kingiest of kings, who you've submitted to the Pope having your salvation in his hands. So you are giving permission to this warlock, which is what a Pope is. It's a warlock, to control your soul after you leave your body. It is so fucked up. And I want to just shake people like, wake up. You are doing so much harm by this. You know, so yeah, I agree with that too, Joanne. Praying is not for showy display. It should be very private. I totally agree with that. But anyway, so now let's talk. So you've got this person, sorry, you got this person that's died. You've given them this title of saint. The Pope has acknowledged that their soul is basically for sale now. Their soul is basically for sale. So you can use this person through prayer, through spellcasting, to intercede on your behalf. But this interceding is not, if this interceding is not consensual, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about why it's not consensual. Now, again, this is different. When you're praying or talking and you're like, you know, grandmama who passed away, I could really use your comfort right now. The reason why this is not necromancy is because your grandmama's soul, especially if she's not Catholic, is not in control of a warlock. It's free to do what it wants to do. All right, you're also not using relics. And when we talk about relics, I'm not talking about your grandmama's jewelry. I'm not talking about your grandmama's purse. I'm talking about their body parts. And this, when I realized this, everything, I had another aha moment because Shanti and you guys, this group, for months now, the topic of lost body parts have come up over and over and over again. We even did a whole series at the end of 2023 on missing famous people's body parts. We ended with Rasputin, though, the wiener that's missing, right? I mean, Mata Hari, her head's missing. Like Juan Borgia, Francis Borgia's grandfather's body is missing. How many people, if you guys just do a quick Google search of famous people who have missing body parts or missing bodies, you would be shocked. I mean, how the hell? It's like Weekend at Bernie's. Like, how do you misplace a body? You know? So now we know, though, because let's talk about necromancy. So necromancy, what does necromancy mean? So the definition of necromancy is summoning the dead to do favors for the living. Summoning the dead.
Wow.
Favors for the living.
That's the actual definition.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the definition. So necro means corpse and mancy means prophecy. So corpse prophecy. So it's synonymous. So the synonyms are black magic, conjuring, sorcery. Those are the synonyms of necromancy. So in all of these cases that we've studied with, especially like with a lot of the the stigmatists we've talked about in the past, they will saint these people, and then what do? They pull their bodies up and they take things like hearts. Remember, was it Padre Pio whose body got exhumed and they took his heart? and they put the heart in a case. If you go and just Google Catholic relics and go to images, you're going to see hands, you're going to see hair, you're going to see bodies that have been preserved, you're going to see people kissing the bodies, kissing the hearts. So I now know the spell of, I've learned in this research, the spell of necromancy. I'm going to just give you the basics. I don't want anybody doing this. Obviously, it's your free will choice if you look it up to get the whole spell, but I would highly suggest not doing this because any magic you do has to come through you. If you do black magic, it's going to come back and bite you in the ass. I'm just warning you.
Yeah, because just and as we know, the minute you start indulging in stuff like that, you're actually opening up a portal.
Yeah, it doesn't stop.
You,
yeah.
the portal that you're opening yourself up for.
If you're doing stuff for protection and that kind of stuff for love and health of other people, amazing. That's awesome. But when you are literally interfering with somebody's free will in life or in death, you are in, oh, look, Catherine's here. You are in black magic. Okay. So let's talk about the spells, what they do. So you have to go to, in order to be a necromancer, which is what they're called, necromancers, you have to go to a warlock and you get a body part of the person. So if there is a person, and I can kind of, so let me explain how this might work. So actually this past weekend, this video is going to drop at some point this week. I'm working on it. Jessica, the cryptid huntress, and I, on Friday, we went to, because we live very close to each other, we went to the grave of Mahalia Lancaster. Now, Mahalia Lancaster is known as the Oracle of Georgia. She was very psychic. There's a whole, I've done deep dives. Maybe Jessica and I can come on and tell you the story, the story of Mahalia. There's been movies made. Anyway, and I just felt very like a calling to go visit her grave. And so Jessica and I went out there, and with Mahalia's grave, she's buried at this very small little Methodist church out in the middle of nowhere, Georgia. They put concrete over her grave. Well, they do that a lot in the South with people who are psychics or mediums or voodoo priests and priestesses. When they die, they'll put concrete over their graves, or they'll put a grave up and move their body to a secret location because of necromancy. Because what people will do is they will try to dig up the person, and they'll take a finger, or they'll take a piece of their hair, or they'll take a bit of their arm. Because yeah, exactly, Jenny, they're everywhere. They're not hiding their necromancy at all. It's disgusting. But so people will do this. They'll go to these graves and they'll pull up the body parts of these magnetic, spiritually gifted people, and they'll take the body part with them to do necromancy, to harness the person, to be enslaved to them, to do their will. So that's why a lot of these graves in the South have concrete on top of them, so people won't do this. So I kind of want to use that as an example. So this is why I have made it very clear to my friends and family, do not effing bury me. I'm saying it right here on live TV again. Do not bury me. I want to be burned, baby. I do not, especially being an O negative, don't you dare put me in the earth. I do not want to be used after death. I do not consent. If any of my family or my friends need any organs, I am O negative. So if any of my friends, any of you guys watching need a kidney, awesome, cool. Take it from me before I'm burned. But do not leave me in a grave. I will haunt the shit out of you if you do that. I will not walk into the light. I will choose to stay earthbound, and I will haunt the shit out of you if you do that. But anyway, so you have a person who wants to harness the magic or the power of a person who has passed away. So what they do is they find a body part of that person, and they go to a necromancer, and they put the skull, it's big with skulls, or whatever they have, a body part of that person, and they will put the skull there, and they will use oils and different concoctions and different spells to then summon the person who housed the body, the soul of the person, back. And that person becomes enslaved to you. So they have to intercede for you. Yeah, exactly. So you have this like essence, what left within the DNA of the particles of the person. And so that is why I believe, like in our, we covered the Paris catacombs. We've covered, like, for even if you're a white person, like in India, they cremate still. That's what they do. But even for us white people, like before Christianity took over Europe, our ancestors cremated. And I think there was a very significant reason why our ancestors cremated, because they knew the power that the body holds. You know, the Vikings would put people on a boat and send them out in the water and burn them. And I think they understood how dangerous it is to keep a person's body laying around, okay, in the wrong hands. In a perfect world where we're not doing black magic, we wouldn't need this, right? So, but it's not a perfect world.
Just put me on the mountain and let me chill out there and let the vultures eat me.
Yeah,
I'm
the
happy
animals
with
can have they won't do anything with it.
Yes.
So I want to be very clear. Like, this is not, if you've inherited your grandmama's jewelry or like, if you have a loving memory of someone who's passed and you've got I have some of my grandmother's jewelry that I just keep in a box, like, you know, Catherine, I'm happy to feed the wildlife. Yeah, same. I'd rather feed the wildlife than leave me in the hands of humans. You know, that's different because you love that person, right? Well, you loved your grandmama. You're not going to be harnessing your grandmama's energy to try to do malicious things with it or get her to do. You might call on her for protection, but because you're not doing any spell casting to bind her to you. It's a binding spell is what it is. Your grandmama's soul or whoever it is has free will choice in the afterlife to help you or not, right? So because you're not, the spell casting you do with the relics and the oils, which I thought was really effing fascinating, because in the Protestant churches we just baptize with water. In the Catholic churches, they do water and oils. So what are those oils being used? I mean, of course, oils can also be used for positive things too.
Yeah.
But I don't think
a lot of the oils they use, because again, if you're looking at the decodes Jesse's doing with us lately, especially lately, a lot of the different lineages of the secret societies are all into their own apothecaries, right?
Yeah.
So they make their own concoctions, whether it's poisons or perfumes or whatever enchanting stuff that they do there. But that's interesting because the apothecary is very strong, the sense of smell. It's obviously one of your 5 main senses, so it would make sense.
Janice, I would think not with animals, because I don't see anybody using necromancy on animals. And you loved your dogs. So I don't think like if I had a property and I buried my animals on my property, I would be very confident that they were going to stay where they are, because they're not nobody on my house has any ill intention to hurt. You know, so yeah,
just set your animals free. They do not want to be in a box. Please just set them free.
I don't want to think. I absolutely do not want to think about that with Robbie. But you know, you do have animals. You do have to think about that because their lifespan is
Can you imagine that person lying in a box for his whole life? When my father passed away, I promise you, we all, and there's 6 of us kids, we all got a bit of his ashes. Some of my siblings, that was 10 years ago. Some of them to this day. And his ashes came in this little thing right here, right? My section of the ashes. And I just went to the beach the very next day and I said, cheers, daddy. Woo, be free, man. And the others are like holding on. I'm like, no, please, just let everything, please.
Did you guys, have you seen those clips?
Your animals in a box, no.
Have y'all seen the clips of those people that do the ashes in the wind like
Yes, it happened with one of my good friends. We were all in the desert in Namibia and it was a windy day and all of us friends, there were about 8 of us there, she passed away. And the next minute we threw ashes right back into us. I was like, okay, we figured you had to do that.
Yeah, that's so funny. I've often thought with Robbie when that day comes, which is going to be a very long time from now, that I would take half of his ashes back to India to scatter them back in India. And then the rest we would put in places that he loved, like the mountains or Florida, that's gonna be a long time coming. I mean, I would take a bullet for my dog. I know, Janice, how you feel. Like my dog is like my son too. I would absolutely take a bullet. Like my boyfriend said he was complaining this morning to his assistant because I always get mad. Ravi does no wrong. Like, I get mad at my boyfriend for scolding Ravi. Like, Ravi does no wrong. And he was like, he had like tried to move Ravi in the night or something because he was laying on top of it. And I got mad at him for like disturbing Ravi when, you know, my boyfriend was cramped up. And his assistant, I think he thought his assistant was going to take my boyfriend's side, but she was like, of course, that's her son. I get mad at my husband too when he tries to disturb us. So you know, we all love our animals. So, you know,
Dennis, that's actually interesting because that's something I've been discussing with people lately. People I know, clients of mine, and they believe that their ashes, I was actually going to say that when we were talking about it earlier on, they believe that the ashes of their parents and stuff are haunted. And you're confirming that there now. That obviously something hasn't released.
Let them release.
Like, why did you burn my body? Ah!
Listen, I would rather be, I mean, the idea of being 6 feet underground, I mean, that's terrifying. I just like, I mean, I guess this happened in more places than just America, probably in like the 1800s. If you go to these old graveyards, you could see bells by graves still, where because they had such a problem of accidentally burying people who were alive. They were just really sick. And so they put coffins in the ground. There would be a wire. The person could ring the bell. If they woke up, I mean,
my mother told me these terrible stories. There was these people, apparently there was some illness, I don't know how many years ago, and people literally thought they were dead, but they weren't dead.
No, they
weren't.
were. Yeah.
And then, I don't know, there were stories, I don't know how they got the coffins out again, but something, they would see these scratch marks.
Yes! Well, that's why we have bells in these old cemeteries. If you travel up and down the east coast of America and you go to these very old cemeteries, you will see old bells where there used to be a cord that connected it down to the grave, and they would leave it there for a while, and it would happen. And the graveyard person the bell would ring, and he had to call people, be like, "Well, I guess May Ellen's still alive. We got to dig her out." Like,
how constant.
I mean, I've often thought that traveling back to the Victorian times could be
because
they were very morbid, but
I'm sorry. I just think the idea of I wanted to be at that board meeting where they decided they'd put a bell on the grave.
I mean, they all have a picture. I mean, it was so common, though. It was so common. Can you imagine, like, just you're in your petticoats and your aprons and your baskets coming home from market, and you walk by a graveyard and you just hear ding, 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 ding. I guess old Papa John Miller is still alive. We got to go dig him out.
Let's go see. And they all sprint across the field to see who's alive.
Can you imagine being dug out of the grave and the guy sitting up and being like pissed as hell?
Damn, it's been hot.
You're all out of the will. Like, the wild things our ancestors did. But yeah, so that's kind of the necromancy angle, you guys. And so what the Catholic Church is doing on top of other people is basically summoning dead people's souls by order of the Pope through the praising of relics. Yeah. Eating a burger and feeling, damn, I'm hungry.
Munch.
I am so hungry. Can you imagine? You probably shadowed me. You probably got feces all over you and urine all over you. I mean, you've been in that box underground, you know.
Did you have to take us there? Did you have to take us there?
How mortifying would that be to be the one coming out of the grave? Be like, not yet, guys. Not yet. We also see a lot of and this could be something too that we look into. There are a lot of old cemeteries so like Mahaley has concrete over her cemetery because people were trying to dig up her body, but they're also older graves. Mahaley Lancaster died in 1955, so she's kind of more of a modern person, and there are other graves where older, like from the 1800s, where they have concrete over them. And Jessica looks at me and she goes, "You think that guy was a vampire?" Because they would do that as well. They would like concrete graves of people they thought were vampires, so they couldn't come back out and like, you know, do vampire stuff to them. So anyway, so that's the necromancy angle, guys, the Catholic Church. We need to talk also about exorcisms, but I think it's probably a good place to pause it until like Wednesday. Shanti, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we've got a bit to digest after that.
Yeah, because the exorcism is going to pull into it as well, guys. Francis Borgia is juicy, y'all. Like, he was an evil son of a bitch, but good thing we don't live in his time. And the Catholic Church, if you look up any type of podcast or information about St. Francis Borgia from the Catholic Church, they're going to tell you he was the most amazing human being that ever lived. Bullshit. He was awful. He was awful. But just, I want you guys to consider the necromancy. And yeah, exactly. Hunting the shadows. That's actually too. And especially back when medical schools were starting to use cadavers to practice surgeries, they would rob the graves to sell the bodies to medical schools as well. So that's another reason you're not, that person didn't give their consent. They didn't donate their body to science. So burn me. You best burn me. Y'all heard it here on Aquarius Rising Africa. You best burn me. Do not bury me. So
put me on the hill so the vultures can eat me. I'm happy with that. I don't want to be burnt. Ouch. No. That's quite terrifying, actually.
But I would, even though I'm not an organ donor anymore. I used to be, but being O negative, I was advised to not put organ donor on my driver's license, because if I were to be in an accident where it was touch and go, more than likely, allegedly, the hospital would just let me die because they can get more money for my organs because I'm O negative. So, yeah, exactly. Dragonfly, that, and like,
okay, was that fence supposed to?
It like went, it was right, Dragonfly, it was kind of like up and over the one grave, like it goes over the grave. So that during back in the time, they would do that with like vampires and like witches that they thought these people, like back in like the 1700s. I think Dragonfly is up in the northeast area. You know, so I think Dragonfly are both like in the original 13 colonies. That's why it's fun, because this was the original, like, you know, where you got all these crazy shit. But yeah, if I know what you're talking about, like you have, like, here's my phone, like say that's the grave, like this is the grave. They have like it's almost like a cage, like a wrought iron cage that would go like over the grave, very like a little bit off the grave, like that much. So it's not over, it's just over the one grave. So you're literally like, you've jailed the coffin, basically. The coffin is in jail. So yeah.
Dennis, we're gonna have to have a conversation about this sometime. And witches is a very old belief. Now you see, it just shows you, yeah, grandma from Africa has been in the ass end of the world for too long, because I don't even know these things about having to bury a witch in a little metal cage. I mean, that's like insane.
Listen, okay, I think after we get through Francis Borgia, when we're done with Francis Borgia, I think we need to do with Jessica, bring Jessica on with me to do Mahalia Lancaster, because I think that is one thing, you guys, that I mean, Dragonflies, and I think you're in the New England area, Dragonfly. So we're both East Coasters, but the Southeast especially, I love being from the Southeast because we are the most eccentric weirdos. I've said this story before. I'll say it again. If you guys ever read the book Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, or watch the movie Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, which I actually want to cover that case with you. I've covered it before a long time ago on my channel, but I want to revisit it because it's based on a true story. When that book was released, the most outrageous part of the book, and I remember this was on TV, there is a scene where a man, it takes place in Savannah, Georgia, where a man walks a ghost dog every morning. It's in the opening of the book, because this guy from New York comes down to Savannah to cover this case, and so part of the story is him just being so just enamored with the culture and the eccentric culture of the South. And when that came out, I remember watching this news report about how people were so just thought it was crazy that there was a man walking a ghost dog, and asking, is this real or was this made up? And I remember being like 16 at the time and thinking, wait, you guys don't walk ghost dogs? Because that's normal in the South. It is effing normal in the South to have someone walking a ghost dog. Every single person I
at least see the dog. Can people at least see the dog? Or is it like a...
You see the leash.
Like, and can you see the collar, like walking like that as well?
And it depends on if you're a seer or not, or you just see a guy pulling a leash. You know, we all know where the voodoo mumbas are. We all know about. I mean, you go, if you're in the South, if you go on an old Southern porch, you look up and see what color the ceiling of the porch is. I guarantee you, it's a blue color, because that keeps demons away. So this is what I love about, and I think it's a lot of these are true just in the East Coast in general. That's why I brought now when I was in Salem, I still to this day say nothing happened in Salem. There were no witch trials there. I think it took place somewhere else. And the reason why I say that is because I didn't feel anything there at all. At all. No paranormal stuff there at all. And then I realized because my mom is from Charleston, South Carolina. I've spent a lot of time in Savannah. I've got family from New Orleans. The South is just just intoxicating when it comes to paranormal, witchy magic stuff. And I didn't feel that in Salem. Now, here's an interesting thing too. Speaking of graves, when I was in Salem, we would go to these old graveyards and you couldn't touch the graves. And they say it's because they're historical. I call bullshit on that. The graves look like they come from Party City. They don't even look like real effing graves. Because we have the same, down in the Southeast, we have graves just as old as the graves in Salem. You cannot tell a Southern person not to touch a damn grave. Even when we visited Mahaley, we brought $1 and a dime. You leave an offering at the grave. We left $1 and a dime because that's what she charged. And there was a little jar there for people to put the $1 and the dime in. You go by graves, people have rocks on graves. They have toys and different things on graves. This is part of the Southern culture. It's you bring these things to the grave for your loved one. Children's graves, there's a lot of toys left at children's graves. And if you told people leave whiskey and beer at people's graves, I mean,
in South Africa, it wouldn't last for 4 minutes there.
Oh, well, no, but see, in the South, we all know about, like, if you move that shit, you're going to get haunted. So even the criminals don't go to the graves and touch the graves.
Our criminals don't give a shit. They'll just, like, do it anyway. They'll pay the price.
Our ancestors will haunt your ass. So you're safe leaving stuff on graves. But even with Jessica and I, we were walking around the graveyard at Mahaley Lancaster's burial site. You know, she had stuff on her grave, obviously, but there were multiple other graves that had all these things on them, from knickknacks, from people leaving them, and so that would never work. That would never work. What they're doing in Salem would never work in the Southeast. And if you go to Salem, I would encourage you, if you want a witchy city, go to Charleston, South Carolina, Savannah, Georgia, or New Orleans, Louisiana, because you are going to get way more of a paranormal experience. You're going to feel it more. There's nothing in Salem. Salem is just a tourist trap. That is all it is. And I really don't think anything happened there. I think there were witch trials, but I don't think they were in Salem. I think that's another part of our history that's absolutely wrong. I think the witch trials happened elsewhere. So anyway, you guys, but we'll pick back up on Wednesday, which I guess
Dennis, and you all know Hunting in the Shadows is Dennis, who has this channel Hunting in the Shadows and often appears with the Cryptid Huntress Jessica on her show as well, talking about these things. So Dennis, we like your comments here today. Thank you.
Yeah, Dennis, absolutely.
I agree with you. Why do you think, though, why do you think they've created the narrative that there were all these witches there? Why would they create that diversion if they weren't?
I think, one, they don't want people to know where the real location was. I think they want to know where the real location was because of necromancy. I think they can dig up those bodies and use those body parts. So I don't think they want people to know where the real location is. So it's about hiding it. But I also think they're trying to harness something in Salem, something new in Salem. So I think they try to get people to go to Salem, to put the energy into Salem, to create this story. You know, a lie.
The chaos and the pain. Because if you think about that, you know, obviously everything is energy. So with the witch trials there, the screaming and the pain and the slaughter.
I don't think it was there at all.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So they would have maybe created that in our bullshit.
In our
things
imagination.
Yes.
To create that point. And I think they're using wherever the real witch trials were, which I feel like they were probably somewhere in the Southeast, Virginia, maybe North Carolina. I don't know. There's Salems all over the United States. There's Salems. So, and I think they probably know where the real witch trials took place. Because I think that in the Salem witch trials, as well as all the witch trials that happened in Europe, I think this was actually the removal of the Tartarian priests and priestesses who were using turmeric and herbs, and they had a knowledge of the way nature works. I think they were on a 13-month calendar. So I think they had to get rid of them. They had to eliminate them. And I think they also wanted to then harness their magic. So I think wherever the real witch trials took place, the establishment knows that. And I think they harness their body parts there. And we don't know. We don't know that's where it is. So we're not even looking in that area to see if bodies are going missing or any of that kind of stuff. And if it was in the Southeast, so this is the thing too. So if the real Salem witch trials were in the Southeast, again, seeing people out in the graveyards is not abnormal. So you wouldn't look twice if you saw somebody out at a graveyard. I mean, listen, there's one morning a week where I go for a run really early in the morning, and I typically run through one of the most haunted cemeteries in Georgia at like 3 o'clock in the morning. That's where I go for a run. And my boyfriend gets very concerned that I'm going to get schmaped being that early in the morning by myself. And I always look at him, I'm like, listen, cowards are people, and cowards aren't running through a haunted cemetery at 3 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, I'm not going to disclose the location on, So I'm fine. And I'm delusional enough to think that the spirits would actually protect me.
Well, that's why they probably do. So it's good to be delulu.
Yeah.
It's got to be delulu in a good way. We like delusional, delulu in a good way.
Yeah.
And
she said it would make more sense for it to be in the South. So many things went on and still do in the South. Yeah. The South is very witchy. I'm telling you guys, like, the South is very, very witchy. That's part of what I like. You go to church on Sundays, but you're doing root work on Sunday night. You're doing voodoo on Sunday night. You know, so it's just how it is in the South. That's just how it is. Think about it. Southern white people, for centuries, not centuries, I don't know, for a good portion of time, Southern white people of the upper class were raised by who? Black women.
Of course they were.
So these Black women were teaching these white kids for generations voodoo. So now we're in 2024, and this is just not like, you know, putting a little salt on your front door, painting your ceiling blue to keep out demons, putting a broom in the corner of your room upside down to keep hags out at night while you sleep. That is normal in the South. Leaving trinkets at the graveyard to keep Grandpappy happy and leaving him some vodka. That is normal in the South, and it's been that way because of the collision of voodoo, Protestant Christianity, and the Native American rituals. And this evolved over a couple hundred years to where we are now. You know, and I've seen a lot of like woke people be like, oh, well, the white people in the South, they only learned voodoo because they forced the slaves. No, voodoo is very prevalent. No, they didn't learn voodoo because they were forced the slaves. Voodoo is sacred. You're talking about babies. So women, Black women, would be handed these white babies at their birth. The white babies for many years were not raised by their parents. They were raised by their nannies. And these Black women would love these children, and these children would love their nannies. You know, a 5-year-old skins its knees and runs crying. It's not running crying to its mother. It's running and crying to its actual mother, which is not its biological mother, which is
the nanny. Yeah. We grew up with them in South Africa. Absolutely.
It's insane. And so these Black women taught these white children this stuff because they loved them. So they taught them protection spells. They taught them about their culture. They didn't hate the babies that they were raising. They were babies. And that started to evolve over time. And so that's why voodoo is so prevalent in the South. It's not just New Orleans makes a living. They market it. It's a sales pitch in New Orleans, but it is prevalent all over the South, all over. Just like moonshine. Everybody's got a jar in their freezer that's moonshine. And y'all want to y'all know y'all want to know who does the moonshine? It's the damn Baptist. And they're the ones that pretend like they don't drink any alcohol, but they're the ones that are moonshining out.
When it was lockdown, we were all sharing our moonshine recipes on Facebook.
Listen, y'all, I want to get Shanti to America. I want Jessica and me to take Shanti on a tour of the Appalachians, of all the sister cities.
I'm going. You're going to see me there sooner than you think. But I need to get through a portal because I refuse to pay 40,000 Rand airfare. It's like, who wants to pay 40,000 Rand airfare? We have to find that portal that's going to take me directly
I guarantee you guys, I'm going to be pissed. I keep joking about it, but when the truth comes out, if they tell us that like Europe and Africa and like England are literally just a canoe ride away, I'm going to be fucking pissed. Like, you mean I could have just paddleboarded over to Shanti?
Exactly, kayak. I mean, we could be hanging out in our costumes on the beach, babe.
I know, right? I've been thinking about that. The more we awaken, I'm like, I don't actually think our countries are as far away as they tell us they are. Because something doesn't feel right about this. I feel like we're kind of closer. So anyway. I would after we get through Frances Borgia, if you guys want, I would love to do like a Mahaley Lancaster episode with Jessica, just to kind of do a lighter episode and also kind of celebrate that Southern culture. I always say there's no one savage, there's no more savage human being than a Southern woman, because that Southern woman with pearls on and lipstick on and high heels on will basically make you cry while with a smile on her face. So yes. Oh, he's gonna come again.
Yes, I love it. And Jessica can remote view, so if we get lost, Dennis, Jessica can find us.
Jessica took me, you guys. I'm working on the footage now. This weekend, after we went to Mahaley Lancaster, she took me to one of her bigfooting locations, and I can't say where it is, but I've got footage, and I saw some of the stuff that she was talking about, and it was hot as hell, you guys. It was so damn hot. But anyway, that's just the South. So that will be coming up on my channel as soon as I get it edited. But yeah, I would love to take you on a tour, Shanti, of all the magical.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I'm coming. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. I'll be there. I'll be there. Things are getting warmed up.
Yes.
Things are starting to move in that direction. And just when I thought the only time I was ever going to go to America when I was 6 years old was to marry Jimmy Osmond. I was convinced I'm moving to America and I'm marrying Jimmy Osmond.
You would have been a damn Mormon. You would have had to have been a Mormon.
Yeah, what did I say? I would have had 13 kids. Not going to happen. I'm very happy I didn't do that. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. And it was absolutely delightful to have you all here again in the chat today. I look forward to seeing you again on Wednesday with Bryce. So tomorrow I have Lynn Monet on again. Lynn is very, very cool. She's also she's an ex-psych nurse. I've had her on with Jerry Marzinski before. Sees these entities on the bodies, sees through the layers. And yeah, I love it. So having her on Wednesday, Tuesday. Jesse's not here this week. As you guys know, Caleb is taking some downtime, but you know what? He could be back at any time now. So just watch where we're at. And Dennis, you're going to come on my show one of these days soon. Yay. And soon, Dennis is going to be a guest as well, hunting in the shadows. Yes, Dennis, that's my goal.
And Jaguar, right, if you watch this, for some unknown reason, please contact us because we really want to talk to you, girl. You got a whole community of people who believe you, who absolutely believe you. So.
Yes, absolutely. Greg, you're right. We're going to be finding some very interesting. And what's really cool is that there are so many more interesting people just popping out of the woodwork now. You know, it's like, remember in the beginning when we first started 4 years ago, I mean, there were not many people doing this, right?
No.
And now every second channel, every third channel you're getting is people exposing, talking cryptids, the military, all of these things. It's very, very cool. So thank you, everybody. Really cool to see you all again. Look forward to seeing you very, 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 very soon. Oopsie, very, very soon again. And God bless you all. Have a beautiful week.